We're here at the eMetrics Summit DC, and we're here with Neil Mason. He's the Director of Consulting for Viant, and he's also probably one of the most experienced eMetrics attendants and presenters. It's his 21st eMetrics, which is pretty impressive. And we'll ask a few questions. First of all, you've been involved with consulting. You probably consulted for hundreds of companies, and also with data analysis or deep data analysis. And one of the things that is happening on the industry with the acquisitions, especially IBM, that is heading towards analyzing all the data around us. So how do you see the analytics industry and the BI industry? I mean, all the data analysis. How do you see they merging, diverging?
I guess if you mean by the analytics industry, you mean the web analytics industry. I think it's always been quite interesting that the business intelligence industry and the web analytics industry have been somewhat different. And when I worked at a dot-com business 10 years ago, we didn't see that differentiation. We didn't view web analytics and business intelligence as being different things. We just saw it all as data, just different types of data. I guess the reason why it's being perceived so different is because they are very different types of data, and traditional business intelligence systems have been very much orientated around structure, hierarchies, consolidation, high levels of accuracy, and so the attributes around a typical business intelligence implementation are quite different really to, I guess, some of the ambiguity around web data and so on and so forth. I think though that as organisations now see the web channel, the digital channels being far more part of their portfolio, if you like, that we'll see that begin to come together a bit more. And it's interesting how the likes of Expedia, they're talking about how the analysts are now becoming much more integrated with, say, the finance function. That is, for me, sort of evidence that this change is beginning to happen, and that the implication for that will be that there will be demands on the web analytics industry to create probably more precise and accurate and valid data than it has perhaps been challenged to provide in the past.
Yeah, that's very interesting. And one of the things that haunts me when I work with clients is, what do you do first? I mean, you have all kinds of techniques. You have web analytics, you have testing, you have targeting. So how do you start this process? I mean, what should you do first?
Well, the thing I always say to clients is, first of all, you've got to get the right numbers right. So it's hard work and there's a lot of heavy lifting involved. But at the beginning of the journey is really all about putting in place what I call an effective performance tracking environment. So it's about measuring the things, the things that count, and getting the right numbers right. So that very much is about having a strong, solid tracking platform. If you're talking about the digital channel, then that means having a strong web analytics platform. It probably nowadays means having a strong voice of the customer platform, and having those two things integrated, and looking also at other elements like site performance data and other types of data. So it's being able to measure things, because once you can measure things, you can test things, and then when you can test things, you can then begin to optimize things. So that for me is the sort of the cycle really. It's getting a good platform in place, having faith in the numbers basically, making sure that the data has a high level of integrity. So getting all the tags right if you're using tagging solutions, whatever it might be, and getting those sort of that core part of the tracking system absolutely right. Because once the numbers are right, people have faith in the numbers, then they'll take decisions based on those numbers. If you don't have that in place, then people won't test. They won't know that the test's been a good test. So for me, that always comes first.
Just one of the things that sometimes I see is that management, they don't know what to expect. For example, from the conversion journey, if I can say that. So don't you think that sometimes, for example, because you say to them, well, you have to put everything in place, so people have to spend a lot of money to put everything in place, right?
Not necessarily.
No?
I mean, there is a sort of an overhead, I guess, but if you're relatively new and you're putting a system in for the first time, you don't have to tag necessarily every single page. But what you might need to do is to ensure that you're measuring some of the key pages or the key parts of the site, so at least you can begin to get visibility. I think it's a bit like walking into a building. You don't suddenly turn on all the lights. You go around and you turn them on one at a time. And in terms of then getting an organisation used to having this kind of data, rather than having a hose pipe sort of turned on them, that you can feed them the data, one step at a time, get them used to using it, understand some of the nuances behind this kind of data, and then sort of build it up from there. So I've always, having made many mistakes in the past, but that's how you learn, is probably not to try to do everything at once.
Yeah, that sounds very intelligent. So you were a veteran consultant, and one of the things that I think we all agree is that every analyst is a consultant, either to an external company or to his own company, to other teams. So what tips can you provide to them? I mean, how can you do better consulting when it comes to analytics?
Yeah, I mean, I think obviously one of the attributes of analysts is that they tend hopefully to be curious people. You would hope that your analysts are probably quite intelligent as well. But I think for me the real trick is, and something I teach my own consultants is you've got to develop good listening skills. For me, consultancy is about not necessarily showing other people how clever you are or you've got all these great ideas, but it's about being able to bring a solution which works for them. So sometimes that might be quite a radical solution, but in other times it might just be helping someone along on a path which they're sort of already engaged in, but they don't necessarily know where to go. Mm-hmm. So certainly good listening skills, understanding the nature of the problem, what problem are we trying to solve, what's the business impact of solving that problem, and then the other, and tied in with that is, particularly if you're dealing with more senior people within the organisation, or if you're working in a consultancy business working with clients, is to put yourself in the shoes of the person you're talking to. So try and understand the problem from their perspective rather than necessarily from your perspective. For me, I was taught those. I've always felt that that's been something that stood me in good stead, is being able to understand. So say you've got two ears and one mouth for a reason, you should use them in those proportions a lot of the time. So. Excellent.
Do you have any insights or directions that you see that the measure industry or the web industry is going?
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of the trends that certainly we've been hearing around today and yesterday at eMetrics here in Washington has been about, well, there's two strong things that have come out, and I sort of tend to see those as well, is obviously proliferation of channels. Obviously there's a lot of buzz around social media. There'll be a lot of buzz about something else next year and the year after. So I think a lot of the challenges for those of us working in the industry is keeping on top of all those things. So there'll be proliferation, there'll be fragmentation, and that will be a challenge. And I think the other element is one around integration. I mean, I've always thought that digital has always been too siloed, and obviously there are industries which are pure play digital industries, but most companies are multi-channel businesses, and I think really that's the direction we're heading in, is how do you pull all this stuff together? How do you pull together the insights we got around the online journeys with the offline journeys? What are the interfaces between, say, contact centres and the web? These are all the issues that I think that we'll be dealing with in the days ahead.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Neil.
It's been a pleasure.
It was a pleasure.